Okay, so let's just do a little review of what we've just done on the previous page. So she's using biology. She started on line 115. She's turned to biology to make her case, and she argues that the genital parts are made not just for particular reasons that the medieval church was suggesting, and particularly St. Jerome. They were made for more than just purgation of urine, as she said, and they were also made for more than just being able to tell male from female. And then she said on the previous, so this just one line on the previous page, 125, so the clerk has been at with me wroth. I say this that they make it ben for both, that is to say, for office and for ease, of engender their ween that God displays. Why should man else in here a book a set, that man shall yield to his wife her debt? Now wherewith should he make his payment, if he ne use his silly instrument? Okay, so she started on the last line of the previous page. So the clerks, so the learned folk aren't angry with me. I'll say this. They were made for both. That is to say, for office and for ease, for use and pleasure, business and pleasure. For engender, to have more children, so that we don't displease God. And very amusingly, like 114, line 114, and of course line 28, where there are cross-references, line 114 and also 28, in the act and fruit of mariage, she said. And of course the irony is she has no children. So there's irony in the fact that she is using this as argument that she doesn't displease God, and she doesn't have children herself. Why should men else in all their books set that men should pay their wives their debt, yield their wives their debt? Now this is from 1 Corinthians 8:3. 1 Corinthians 8:3, where it says the husband yield debt to the wife and the wife to her husband. The irony, of course, is this idea of yielding to your wife your debt. Is, of course, this was meant to be mutual. A wife yields to a husband, and a husband yields to a wife. There's meant to be a mutuality in this. And of the irony, of course, is she takes only one side in the way she has done with her biblical exegesis in the first 100 and so lines, is that this is very amusing. She takes it as they should yield, not as husband and wife should mutually yield to one another. Then she asks, now, how would he pay his debt unless he uses his instrument? And of course you've got a pun, of course, as you can see from my notes, his simple tool, and of course it's a pun. Of course it's a pun. Silly instrument. Okay, so it's absolutely a pun. Very amusing. But we start to see very clearly that sex for her is gain, and to gain power. And of course that also links with the tale. So the idea of dominance is so important throughout the prologue, but also looking forward to the tale. And then, of course, so how should he make his payment? Then if they were fashioned just to purge urine and also for propagation. So she's really querying this. She's about to say, as you can see in my notes, I'm not saying every person to such a harness should hold and have use for breeding. And of course, harness, I was reading an article, it was kind of looking at all these puns, the idea of a harness, and the amusing imagery she uses about genitalia. And she then says, then should no make of chastity no cure. That would make little show for chastity. And of course it's very interesting in that the medieval church, this is context, the medieval church would have condemned sexual intercourse for pleasure, and they saw it for engender, so to have children only. And actually, as I said before, St. Jerome and the anti-woman tradition, and Theophrastus also, believed that, you know, a woman gained, there was no positive, and actually one should avoid this. Again, like we discussed before, she's superficially reasonable, but actually we start to see this a means for dominating her husband. There is comedy in what she's saying, but of course it's not the reciprocal nature that is actually mentioned in the biblical text that suggests that both own one another's body. So I'll carry on. But I say not that every wight is hold, that hath such harness as I to you told, to go and use him in engender. Than should men take of chastity no cure. Christ was a maid and shapen as a man, and many a saint sith that the world began, yet lived there ever in perfect chastity. So, Christ was a maid, Christ was a virgin, and shaped as a man. Many a saint since the world began. So he's saying, yes, there are lots of virgins. Yet, so she comes back to her, yet live they ever in perfect chastity. I nil envy no virginity. I'll have no quarrel with virginity. And of course she comes back to her clear, she doesn't hold herself up as perfect, in fact the opposite. Now she's about to go on to use a metaphor of bread. As you can see on my left-hand turned notes on the side, white bread was a great delicacy in the Middle Ages. And she's about to say that virgins are made of white bread. They are a delicacy. And we can be called barley bread, brown bread. And she's about to go on to say that in the Gospel of Mark, when Jesus fed the 5,000, barley bread will feed people. And there's also an amusing cross-reference. Let's carry on. Let him be breed of pure red white seed, and let us wise hotten barley breed, and yet with barley breed mark tell a can. Our Lord Jesu refreshed many a man, in such a start as God hath cleppered us. I will persevere, not precious. In wifehood I will use my instrument, as freely as my Maker hath it sent. If I be dangerous, God give me sorrow. Okay, let's pause there for a moment. So, let them be bread of pure white seed, and let us wives be called barley bread. And yet, with barley bread, Mark tells us that Jesus refreshed many a man. So this is, of course, very important. The amusing reference to refreshed, cross-reference line 38, and it's very cheeky, as I've put in the margin. And then, of course, in such a state God has summoned us, I will persevere. She feels, I am not precious. I am not white bread. I am brown bread. And then, of course, in wifehood I will. Now this is really important. She uses that at a couple of other times. So we see the repetition of wol, a little lower. So make sure you note that. I will use my instrument. So she will use her barley bread. It's this determination. So in wifehood I will use mine instrument as freely as my Maker hath it sent. So she will use her sex organs because God gave her them. And if I be unwilling, God give me sorrow. So she is willing. And now, of course, she continues this idea that it's not mutual. This debt will be paid. Mine husband shall have it both eve and morrow, when that him list come forth and pay his debt. And husband I will have, I will not let her, which shall be both my debtor and my thrall, and have his tribulation withal, upon his flesh, while that I am his wife. Okay. Ooh, gosh. So, shall have it, evening and morning. They will. When they like to come forth and pay their debt. Whenever they like to come forth and pay their debt, they will have it. They will. Morning and evening. She clearly dominates husband. Sounds like a punishment. And husband I will have, I will not let. He shall be my debtor, pay his debt, and be in my thrall, be my slave, and have his tribulation, his struggle withal, upon his flesh, while that I am his wife. So she will do more than adequate. She will make him pay his debt. And it's really, we get very clearly, if you have a little cross-reference with your introduction, I've put a note at the bottom, please have a look at page 12, when it talks about mastery, and you do have this, the female body and male asceticism, this kind of denial of the flesh and the dichotomy between the two. But we very much see moving from quite amusing into very demanding and quite shocking. And she will be generous. We could see she's generous. She will, she will make her husband pay his debt. But actually, it's very much a sense of trade and commerce. She wants him to pay. She will own. It's very much power. It's very much power. Let's carry on. I have the power, as I just said. I have the power during all my life upon his proper body, and not he. Right thus the apostle told it unto me, and bade us sell our husbandes, for to love us will. All this sentence me liketh every deal. Up stood the pardoner, and that anon. Now, dame, quoth he, by God and by St. John, ye be a noble preacher in this case. I was about to wed a wife, alas! What should I buy it on my flesh so dear? Yet had I lived, wed no wife 2 year. Abide, quoth she, my tale is not begun. Nay, thou shalt drink it of another tun ere that I go, shall savour worse than ale. And when that I have told thee forth my tale of tribulation in marriage, of which I am an expert in all mine age, that is to say, myself have been the whip, then mayst thou choose whither thou wilt sip of thilke tun, that I shall approach. Beware of it, ere thou to nay approach, for I shall tell in samples more than 10. Whoso that nil be wore by other men, by him shall other men corrected be. The same word as writeth Ptolemy, read in his Algemester, and take it there. Dame, I will pray you, if your will it were, said this pardoner, as ye began, tell forth your tale, spare for no man, and teach us young man of your practice. Gladly, quoth she. I'm going to pause there. Okay, so let's cover loads. I have the power upon his proper body. So she has the power and not he. So we've really got to the key of this is not mutual. This is not for procreation. This is for gain. And it's actually quite a dangerous perspective. And it's very difficult for us to say at this stage that Chaucer was an iconoclast. We can't say that he was proto-feminist, because he's clearly creating a woman who is deeply concerning, laughable, and very opinionated, shocking in her opinions. Her power, her mastery over men is more than just amusing. The audience of a context of the time would see her as an amalgamation of stereotypes, and yes, more than amalgamation of stereotypes, but still very concerning. So we cannot say that Chaucer is presenting her as merely positive. Very much not. Very much not. And it is funny, it is amusing, but we cannot say he's an iconoclast or creating kind of proto-feminist character at all for the context of the time. So then on from 160. The apostle told it to me and bade our husbands to love us well. And of course this is from Ephesians verse 25. But of course again she ignores the mutuality of the relationship. And again it says, for example, 1 Corinthians 7, a reminder, says, a wife cannot claim her body, it's her husband. Equally, the husband cannot claim his body, it's his wife's. And as I said on the previous page, on the previous slide, she's totally misunderstood the mutuality of it. So she says that the husbands should love us well. And this is what I like to dwell on. This sentence is what I like to dwell on. So she's again misunderstood the second half of the idea. The pardoner interrupts. And this is really important for the next section. So do a line across your page and carry on. The pardoner interrupts, and he is shocked by the wife's revelations. He says he was about to marry, but now he's not so sure it's a good idea. The wife tells him to listen in this most astonishing manner. And the pardoner politely begs her to continue and teach young men at her practices. She continues, but she asks the company not to be annoyed at what she's about to say, because she's only speaking to amuse. Pardoner's context. I would assume that you've used the virtual learning environment to look up the PowerPoint of pardoner's. But of course the medieval pardoner worked for the church, and he would collect donations for the people who were sorry for their sins, who wanted to find kind of forgiveness. And the system, however, was often open to exploitation, and the partner is clearly a rogue that Chaucer uses to critique these partners. His manhood is called into question throughout the Canterbury Tales. His talk of a wife is an empty boast, and of course he does also say, pretty sure he says, oh, I'd have to check this, that he has a woman in every port. Let me have a think about that. I'll have to come back to that in a lesson. And the irony, of course, also is that the partner is trained, would be a gifted speaker, would be trained in speaking and persuasion and, pardoning people of their sins. And what's so ironic is that he interrupts and she silences him. And so this woman overpowers a man who would have power of rhetoric and would have a lot of power over people's sins and would be seen negatively, but would have a huge amount of kind of rhetorical ability, we would assume. Also, this is context because, of course, it raises that query and the question that Chaucer and writers were beginning to do at the time. Wycliffe and others, Wycliffe, of course, who translated the Bible from the Latin, that there was this questioning of the church, and you can see there's open questioning of the role of the partner and the corruption of the Catholic Church, which is key and a point of context at the time. So he says, "Now, dame," and he addresses her with a respectful term. "Now, dame," quoth he, "by God and by St. John, ye be a noble preacher." Of course, preacher, very interesting, as if she were the preacher. So dame, a respectful term, and then preacher in this case. She's doing the preaching, she's doing the teaching like a person in church. "I was about to wed a wife, alas! Am I to buy on my flesh so dear?" So it's going to be very costly. Why should I buy it on my flesh? This sounds like a very costly thing to do. "I'd leave wedding no wife this year." So he's not going to get married. "You wait, abide." And it's imperative. She absolutely takes back the control, doesn't she? "Abide," quoth she. "My tale is not even started, not begun." "Nay, no, you shall drink of another tun, ere that I go." Very similar to Shakespeare, before I go. "You shall taste another barrel," and a tun. I've done an image on the left hand side, an image of a barrel. The idea of this is a cask. You will have more of this. No, stop. You will have more of this. You will have a barrel full. "And when I've told, I will go forth and tell my tale of difficulties in marriage." And again, that same reminder of the beginning, "of which I am an expert in all mine age." Now that is a link to line 113. Please make a note there. Cross-reference to line 113. "Fruit, flower of all mine age." Again, she's recognizing she's mature. She sees herself as mature and wise and able to give advice. That is to say, "Myself have been the whip, then Meister choose whither thou wilt sip." So I've been the whip, you can choose to sip of the tun that I shall open, abroach, open. "Be wary of it before you make approach, for I have examples more than 10. And whoever that," so those who won't be warned by other men, whoso that nil be warned by other men. If you won't be warned by other men, then you will become an example yourself. So if you won't be warned, you will become the example. I mean, the closest would be the kind of idiomatic phrase. If you don't listen, you will become the butt of the joke. Very, very informal that. So you, of course, you wouldn't want to use that in the exam, but what's clearly is you will become the example. And Ptolemy, mathematician and astronomer. These same words writeth Ptolemy, read in his Algama, so that was his work. And take it there. Courtesy again. "Dame, I would pray you, if your will it were, as ye began, tell forth your tale. Hold nothing back, spareth for to no man, and teach us young men of your practice." And we'll carry on. "Gladly," quoth she, "sith it may your like, but that I pray to all this company." If that I spake after my fantasy, as taketh not a grief of that I say, for mine intent is not but for to play. So she's just gone from the previous page. Gladly, if you like this, but I ask all of this company, so she addresses the whole audience. Though I speak as my fantasy moves me, don't be offended, I'm only intending to amuse. And she moves from theoretical introduction and the biblical exegesis to now practical experience. And that's the structure. And now, sirrah, now will I tell forth my tale. As ever moot I drinken wine or ale, I shall say sooth, though husbandes that I had, as thereof him were good and two were bad. The three were good men and rich and old, and neither might they the statute hold, in which that they were bounden unto me. You wot well what I mean of this pardie. As help me God, I laugh when I think how piteously a night I made 'em swink. And by my faith, I told of it no store, that they had given her land and his treasure. Me needed not no longer diligence to win her love or do him reverence. They love me so well, by God above, that I nae told no dainty of her love. A wise woman will bestow her every noon to get her love, yet there as she hath known. But sith I had him wholly in mine hand, and sith they had me even all her land, what should I take and keep him for to please? But it were for my profit and mine ease. Okay, so let's go through that. So, as ever, I won't drink wine or ale. I promise to tell the truth. Husbands that I had, 3 of them were good and 2 were bad. The 3 were good men, rich and old. That was why they were good, because they were rich and old. Hardly were they able to hold their statute. So again, the marriage debt, they were hardly able to hold up their side of the statute, the kind of legal, the agreement. They were hardly able to hold up their statute, in which they were bounden unto me. And of course this is quite disrespectful towards her husband's ability to perhaps perform. You know what I mean of this. Pardon. As help me God, I laugh when I think how piteously at night I made them work. Of course, this is sweated labour. They will pay. They will have it morning and night. But by my faith, I did not care about their distress. They had given me, given here, land, and here they'd given me all their land and their treasure. Me needed not to do any more diligence. I didn't need to do any more diligence to win their love, or pay them reverence, do them reverence. I didn't need to exert myself to win their love. I had their land and their treasure. They loved me so well, by God above, that I set no dainty of their love. I had no value of their love. They loved me so well that I set no value on their love. And this is the point where we really start to have a reaction where we start to dislike her. A wise woman, cross-reference to line 520. A wise woman will be constantly busy to get their love, if she has none, thereas she hath none. But since I had them wholly in my hand, so in the palm of my hand, completely under my thumb perhaps, you wouldn't use that in the exam, but hem wholly in mine hand, and since they had given me all their land, why should I please them? Why should I please them? She's making it a mission, unless it is for my profit and my ease. So why should I take care to please them, unless it is for my profit and my ease? So she lumps together the first 3 husbands in a very unpleasant manner. They were good because they were rich and old. But what is interesting, of course, is that anti-female literature of Theophrastus and St. Jerome and the like lumped all women together. So she lumps all men together, or at least her 3 husbands, and we find it quite difficult, insulting, rude, and yet, of course, that is what the medieval church did to all women, particularly Theophrastus when we get to that. And Theophrastus saw all women as troublesome, greedy, and manipulative. And so actually there is irony in that as well. Now this, you will need to look at your notes. I've put a note on the left. You must look at page 84 because the notes are extensive on that case. So let's carry on. I set him so a work by my fay, that many a night they sing and wail away. The bacon was not fit for him, I trow, that some men han in Essex a done 'em all. I governed them so well after my law, that ech of him full blissful was and foul, to bring a me gay things fro the fair. They were full glad when I spake to him fair. For God it woot, I chidder him spitiously. Now, I've gone over onto the next page, which will be in the next PowerPoint, the next video. But let's just go over this. I set them to a work by my faith, and many a night they said, alas, wail away! So they had to work so hard that they come back in and sing, wail away! The bacon was not fat for them, I think, and of course this is a reference to Essex at Dunamo, which is in your notes at page 84, where it says there was an award every year. There was a married couple in Essex, married couple who had not quarrelled or wished themselves single during the previous year, were awarded a side of bacon. So the implication, of course, is that her husbands wished that they were single and therefore did not get the side of bacon. I governed them so well, again, absolutely astonishingly shocking. I governed them so well according to my law, according to my ways, that each of them was blissful and eager to bring me gay things from the fair. They were full glad when I spoke to them kindly, for God knows, God it woot, I chided them. To chide would be to tell off or to speak to them unkindly. To speak down to someone spitefully, spitefully. And this is really shocking. She is absolutely open about her mastery, and she is really, really surprising this point. Her claim her first 3 husbands were good men is, of course, the immediate qualification they were rich and old, and that is where their goodness lies. In fact, they were rich. Their age and feebleness allows her to dominate them and to turn their own arguments against them. And of course, they soon die, so she can move on to another rich man. And this is where she marshals a huge amount of the anti-feminist opinion of the time. And what we can see, and we'll discuss in the next video, is that she seems so much a stereotype of what all the anti-woman literature would have said. But yet she is more than mere stereotype. And she gleefully recounts her mastery over them. But she knows all of these anti-woman stereotypes, and then she almost uses them to exemplify her behaviour in order to get power. So she does use this. So we've moved slightly away from Jerome and the idea of abstaining from sex and the genitals only being for urine and to tell male from female. And now we move to Theophrastus, which you must look at in your handouts. And misogynist classed women as all bad, as Theophrastus does. And she then says, because she's quarrelsome, because she's difficult, they're always keen to please her. They bring her presents and let her have her own way. So, and they're so grateful when she speaks to them kindly, and they doted on her, so she treats them badly. It's clearly dehumanizing, but when you look at Theophrastus, he dehumanizes women. So we've got such an interesting perspective. And the prejudice is turned around. She becomes in control. Men are indistinguishable. And there's no names for these men. Just as in Theophrastus, there are no names for these women. And what is interesting is we might well pity these husbands, but it does make us realise how unfairly women were treated at the time.